Like the rattle of old bones cascading down the ill-kept walls of the Underhive's vast and endless catacombs, chill in your airwaves with the whispers and whistles of the restless dead. We are the graveyard ghouls of Pirate Box Castin, 665.66 UHMR Chemrat Radio.
And funny you mentioned graveyards, Gabo, as we are pretty much as deep into the sump as we can get. Once again, chasing down any archaeotech we can find or get our hands on. After this week's batch of Hivequakes, we're hoping to get our hands on a little something.
Gotta get them shiny gubbins.
And damn it, if Kev didn't find another motherlode. Plasma-charged needle pistols? God damn. But how are we going to carry the rest of this back out? We don't have Beast.
It's not my fault he didn't show up.
Don't worry, Gabo. We got old servitor Mikey out here to help us today.
Get out. Excuse me. Not to be confused with your local poltergeist, I am your ghastly ghoulfather Goblin King, joined today by the shambling Yogg-Shoggoth of awe-inspiring madness, Marky.
What it is, host.
You probably shouldn't invite him in. Always keep some extra garlic at hand or around your neck, and possibly live across a body of fast-moving water, just in case it's Count Kev.
What's up?
And joining us from behind the Don't Dead open inside is the shambling undead servitor Mikey.
Hey, what's up?
Welcome to Under the Hive of Madness, episode 54, the Ghoul Stars. Bringing a close to our month of spooky, we are looking at one of the darker and more mysterious regions of the 40k universe. The Ghoul Stars are really only one of 4 of these regions that exist, and they are a great place to tell all sorts of spooky stories or dive deep into horror-related narratives. During this episode, we will dibble-dabble in and out of Purity Seal territory, so strap in for some gory, spooky, dooky giblets. Giblets?
Giblets. I like giblets.
But you call it gib. Remember back in the FPS days when you like fucking gibbed somebody?
Yeah.
Insta-gib.
Insta-gib. You didn't call it Insta-gib.
No, it was Insta-gib.
Insta-gib. So the Ghoul Stars...
Even though it did make more sense to call it jib, because you're turning them into giblets.
It's like the GIF versus the GIF argument.
And what always pisses me off is the dude's like, no, it's supposed to be GIF. Yeah, well, also the dude doesn't speak English as his first language, so there's that.
You don't call it a giraffe. Call it a giraffe.
Right? You call it a giraffe?
You don't get to tell me how I pronounce giraffe, sir. This is a free country. I can say giraffe all I want.
This is my First Amendment protected giraffe.
Goddamn giblets.
And these are my bear arms that I used to protect it. Just fucking bear arms.
Bear arms.
Literal bear arms.
Oh man, there was a shirt. I don't know where, but there's literally a shirt that just has a dude with arms of a bear, and it just says, "I believe in the right to bear arms."
Yeah, no, that's always been one of my favorite, like, little...
Oh, man, it's dumb. And it was like, somebody came up with that, in, 2000 and put it on a t-shirt or something?
Perfect.
Haven't seen it since.
And I guarantee you they have made a ridiculous amount of money.
I can't find it anymore, though.
That's kind of weird. Before we dive into the Ghoul Stars specifically, we wanted to give an overview of where they are located. There is a wild, lawless, and dark region that surrounds the Milky Way galaxy in the 40k universe, classified by the Imperium as the Halo Stars. This is a formation of ancient stars that encircle and contain the Milky Way galaxy, and this is actually a term that we use today as well. Once again, this is something that we use to define the most distant and oldest stars in our galaxy, those stars right on the extreme edge of the observable universe. However, let's jump back into 40k. These stars are believed to be the oldest stars in the galaxy, and their outer circumference extends approximately 200,000 light years in a band outside the galaxy's edge. They are often grouped into clusters, and it is theorized that they are intermingled with dark matter, which is known to extend another several 100,000 light years out around the galaxy's visible edge. So if you look at the map of the 40k galaxy. And if you're wondering what that looks like, you can join our Patreon to watch a video version of this podcast.
Shameless plug.
But if you're looking at a map of the 40K galaxy, you'll see essentially our spiral galaxy, the Milky Way map. And basically stars kind of go all the way out to a certain point, and then there's kind of like a soft region where the majority of the stars kind of stop, and then there's just little clusters, or there's little groupings or little tiny bands that exist sort of outside. And they're definitely part of the galaxy, but they don't seem to fit in with the rest of the spiral. Those would be the halo stars. The next area that I just talked about, this ring of dark matter, would be the next chunk out from that. It would be that blackness that exists at the edge of that map. Now, dark matter isn't necessarily mentioned a lot in 40K lore, so this is kind of like picking and choosing and pulling and popping between what we know and what exists in the 40K universe. But the idea behind dark matter in our universe is that for all light matter that exists, there's an equal amount of dark matter that exists. And the theory is that exists in the space between stars, between galaxies, essentially. So these stars are ancient beyond imagination and remain largely unexplored by the Imperium of Man. Although rogue traders, Mechanicus exploratory fleets, Adaptus Astartes fleets, and other legendary heroes like the Lord Solar Marcarius have all made ventures into these regions in the past. Most who go out into these vast regions, though, never return. It is rumored that these vast and dark frontiers are havens to pirates, warp entities, and unknown Xenos intelligences and empires. Before the coming of the Cicatrix Maledictum, the Halo Stars region was loosely defined by any system that the Astronomicon's light could not reach. So in order to be a Halo Star, or in order to be in that region of Halo Stars, you had to be far enough away from the Astronomicon that you couldn't easily see it anymore. However, while this definition is still true, if you couldn't easily see it in M41, it's part of the Halo Stars. After the coming of the Cicatrix Maledictum, obviously the Dark Imperium, or the Imperium Nihilus, has mostly cut off an entire region from the Astronomicon. But when you're looking at what a Halo Star is, when you do, if you do any research based on this episode, or you want to look into any of this stuff on your own, what we're talking about is things that the Astronomicon's light couldn't reach pre the Cicatrix Maledictum, not post. Because there are planets real close to Terra that can't see the Astronomicon anymore.
Yeah, we might be getting into it like further in the pod, but is there a reason they call them the Halo Stars? Is it because it's like a big ring around the galaxy? Is that why it's called?
Because they're in a halo around the galaxy.
Okay,
Yep.
Yeah, that's kind of what I figured, but for some reason, you always think Halo, you always think like the game.
I mean,
like Master
yeah,
Chief.
we did grow up in the generation where that triggers a specific.
Yeah, exactly.
You guys really did grow up in a generation that, like, I remember
Legitimately.
Halo coming out and like all like being fucking hyped as shit, but I had also, I think, passed that like word association stage at that point, because when I hear
100%.
Halo, I actually think of
like Angel
Warhammer
Halo.
40k.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
no,
always
straight
think-
up like
yeah.
Master Chief Halo. Like that's the first thing that pops
Yep.
in my mind.
It's the first thing that pops into my mind. Because, like, I don't know, that's like, because we're so close in age that, yeah, that's right on us. Whereas you're right, Ryan, you were just a little bit older and it didn't probably resonate as hard for you.
I want to say that Halo was announced at one of the first E3s that I attended, which means that I was probably.
I was about to say you
an
were probably
adult.
working at that point.
Yeah, I was adult.
I think it was
at
like
that point.
2001.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
was
think that was
in
the first Halo.
college.
Because it was like middle school or high school for me.
Yeah, same.
That most of the time
Middle
I
school.
really don't feel that old, but every once in a while I'm like, God damn, I'm old.
I think I'm the youngest.
That just makes
So-
me think of Enslavers.
Not currently.
That picture
No,
that
not
you're pulling up.
Oh yeah, there's definitely some enslaver.
That's a
skiff
booty.
going on.
That's a booty hole.
That is a galactic level booty tentacle hole.
Yeah.
So just like the rest of the Milky Way galaxy, the Halo stars are split into 4 major regions, and we wanted to outline those for you guys before we focus on the Ghoul Stars specifically. Each of the other regions will get their own focused episodes, as they are all great foundations for horror storytelling. They are all filled with lots of their own topics and those one-liner kernels that G-Dub loves to drop. So let us know what might need a major deep dive as you come across and as we mention this stuff in the future. Starting with the galactic northwest, just outside and bordering the Segmentum Pacificus and the Segmentum Obscurus is the Halo Zone. It is assumed that this is mostly unexplored area and it is devoid of life. However, it is also rumored to be the place of ancient human settlements that have never been reunited with the Imperium, these all still clawing out their own existence well outside of its reaches. It is also this region that the Lord Solar Marcarius led a crusade into, although that was ultimately doomed to fail and dissolved into infighting, with many of the worlds he brought back into the Imperium within this region, eventually and pretty quickly falling back out of contact with the Imperium. So we had mentioned this when we did I want to say it was our second History of Everything. Lord Macarius just fucking stormed out into the Halo Zone and conquered like 1,000 fucking worlds.
1,000 worlds
Just
as a
getting
human.
And then probably, he led the largest crusade aside of a space
Aside of the Great Space Marine Crusade in the original Great Crusade.
Yeah.
It was he had the biggest crusade. He had the most planets conquered by a single man.
He had the
'cause he
biggest
was in charge of it.
nuts.
He
Until
basically
He had nuts
got
so
recently.
large. His nuts
He
were
got
so large, he
all
rode
the
them
way-
into the Halo Zone.
Yeah, basically. He got all the way to the Halo Zone, and then his astropath started going crazy because they couldn't, or his navigator started like rebelling. Like they were like, "No, we're not going any farther."
That dark place,
and that's one of
you
the
must
interesting
never go there.
And that's one of the interesting things about doing the research into the Halo Stars and into the Ghoul Stars and all this shit is that, like, when we cover the mass history, when we do like the macro history coverage, we talked about like the Lord Solar Marcarius went off into this region. Something happened. It kind of fell apart. He may have died. He may have been lost. They fell to infighting and it all dissolved. When you look into the Halo Zone specifically, they're like, nah, everybody was like, what the fuck are you doing, dude? And he may have been unlifed by his own people.
Yeah, but he was still
It's
made
a little
an Imperial
hazy.
Saint.
Yes, it's a little hazy, but essentially they were like, God damn, it's dark out here. What the fuck are we doing?
Yeah,
And it all fell apart.
The most concrete evidence points to he ended up going back home, but like depressed, and rather than let that happen to him, the Inquisition just offed him and made him a saint.
Yeah.
God damn.
Like rather
It's
than him
interesting.
return home as like an almost accomplished conqueror, because he technically just kind of turned around after conquering a bunch of shit, and then he was all like weird afterwards. So there's a theory that the Inquisition offed him so they could turn him into a martyr.
And Macarius is definitely an esteemed character who will get a hero spotlight at some point.
Oh yeah, I mean he's gotten a bunch of mini ones so far,
He'll get brought up, but he got a tank named after him.
right?
So strange Xenos empires might exist within the Halo Zone, and one of them might be those that create the Halo devices. Halo devices are crazy and will probably get their own focused episode or episodes, because there is a whole hell of a lot to unpack there. But essentially, a Halo device extends your life. It makes you young, and then you start craving human flesh, and then you possibly turn into a Xeno that is part of this empire. Again, there's a lot there. Those are the real short. Those are the
Super
cliff
cliff
notes of the
notes.
cliff notes.
I've never heard of that shit before.
Oh, dude, the
device
Halo
that-
devices are insane.
Yeah, they're whack.
Holy shit!
there's
Is this more
also-
like book lore type stuff?
Yes. Well,
This is like second
of.
edition Codex. Like
Yeah, it's
level.
second through 5th edition codex stuff. So Halo devices are horrible and very, very spooky. However, they are not related to the warp, which is actually one of the things that makes them extra neat. So a lot of times
Yeah.
in the 40k universe, when shit's wiggity, it's the warp. in the case of the stuff that we're talking about today, there's a lot of crazy weird shit that has nothing to do with the warp, which is really cool.
And it's cool, but it's also what almost makes it weird, because like we all know what the warp is, as you know, meta mind as we are about the universe that we're participating in, as we hobby around in. It's less terrifying when you're like, oh, it's just dark magic from the dark magic realm, kind of thing. But when you're like, no, this is just something nobody knows what it is, and it's fucking terrifying.
Yeah, the warp is almost like the cop out, or like the mulligan, or,
right?
What's that thing called, Ryan? Like it's the thing that
token,
the MacGuffin.
The MacGuffin. Thank
you. You're thinking of Deus Machina, right? Deus Machina? Deus Ex Machina.
Deus Machina is when the writer just goes, because I said so, in a way.
Yeah.
Right.
I wrote it because it had to be, like, because there was no other option.
It means like technology of the gods, and it's essentially when like the writers are like, just because. Yeah. The warp is 100% that. It's
Star Trek. Why is it that they can always bounce a bullshit particle off the main deflector dish? Well, because the fucking writer said so. The writer said that they will always have this piece of technology to save the day in the end.
Yeah. So the last part about the Halo Zone is this region also contains the Kronos Expanse, and the Kronos Expanse is something that is currently being kind of developed. So it's an area of very, very resource rich worlds that are out in the Halo Zone that have some other stuff happening in them. It's also one of the areas where a lot of Halo devices come from. So
it's also, if I remember right, the Rogue Trader RPG takes place there in the Kronos Expanse. Yeah, at least the like core rule book. That's where it was targeted to.
Yeah. Moving counterclockwise, we get to the Veiled regions, which are to the galactic southwest, bordering the Segmentum Pacificus. This region consists of dense nebulae and newborn stars that plague the region with waves of extra naughty radiation. While this region has also collected a vast range of stellar matter and stellar dust and debris, making it very difficult to observe. So looking into the Veiled region is difficult with like telescopes and sensors and stuff like that. Not many exploratory fleets have probed the area, but it is known to have lots of orc pirates and other Xenos mercenaries. Unknown to most, there is also a Necron dynasty that is present within the Veiled region. Imperial decree bars humans from settling the region, but that hasn't stopped human settlements, some of which might be under various Xenos dominion, which I thought was an interesting like one-liner. So they're like, oh no, humans live there, and they might be part of a Xenos empire. I was like, thanks, G-Dub, explain. No, that's what you get.
Which wouldn't be Tau, right? Because they're on the Eastern Fringe.
No, that's Eastern Fringe, yeah. The Soul Drinkers Space Marine chapter fled to the Veiled regions with their Space Hulk the Broken Back when they were named traitors. So what I could dig up about that was the Soul Drinkers fled to that area, and yeah, they can drive a Space Hulk. I know we just said no one can. They can.
What was the name of their ship?
The Broken Back.
Oh.
I had kind of a similar reaction. I'm like, really, guys? All right, cool. I wonder whether or not they had named it before or after the movie. I'm like, is there? Because G-Dub does that. They do like weird nods to people all the time.
They're like,
so yeah, when they fled there, they encountered the Necrons, and they encountered the Necrons in a way that made so the Soul Drinkers were running away from the Mechanicus and the Imperium. They ran into the Veiled region and they ran into the Necrons. When they ran into the Necrons, they were like, oh shit, what the fuck? Now we have to fight a battle on two different fronts. And they allied with Xenos in order to like kind of overcome what was happening. So the Soul Drinkers and their fleeing into the Veiled region is definitely something I want to get more into. I did very, very surface research on it, but I was like, holy crap, this is an interesting legion that has been named traitor, and I want to know why. The next area is the Eastern Fringe, which is largely viewed more as a frontier region of space rather than part of the Halo Stars. They are still part of the Halo Stars, though. It's just the fact that they're not really viewed that way. This is probably because it is another resource-rich area and the influence of the Ultramarines and their realm of Ultramar. This region is in the Galactic East and borders the Ultima Segmentum. It is also important to remember that the center of the Imperium and its core worlds around Terra are actually not in the center of the galaxy, but significantly skewed to the southwest, of the galaxy. So Terra and the core worlds that surround it, the core of the Imperium in a lot of ways, is kind of really close to bordering the area called the Veiled region. So when you look at different things like the Eastern Fringes and go, oh, well, the Eastern Fringes are the fringe, they're so far away from Terra. They're far away, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're 100% in the Halo Stars. So part of the Eastern Fringe, or a lot of the Eastern Fringe, is actually still within the galaxy. It's just sort of the outlying elements that are in the Halo Stars.
You have to go pretty far to hit what's actually a Halo Star.
You really do.
So the Halo Stars, are those essentially just the systems? Again, stupid brain here. These are the systems, or the star systems, that are on the fringes of our galaxy, and they're kind of scattered around. Nobody really goes there. It's not really like a thing. It's just,
so the edge of the galaxy, like where the populated people live, that's Victorville. The Halo Stars are all those gas station towns between here and between Victorville and Vegas.
Yeah,
we were somewhere outside of Barstow when the drugs took effect.
Right.
So a good way to look at the Eastern Fringe, and how the Eastern Fringe is part of the map. Halo Stars, is everything kind of east of the Tau Empire in a lot of ways. But the Eastern Fringe is really weird. And another thing that makes it really weird is that it's essentially Ultramar's influence. So Ultramar's influence is felt all over the region. And even as most of the region remains largely unexplored, as the human settled worlds are weirdly dispersed and isolated. So the way that Guilliman and the Ultramarines settled the realms of Ultramar was doot. Oh, let's stop here. Doot. Oh, let's stop there. There was no well, these planets are close to each other and they can remain in contact. It was literally okay, well, we skipped 12 fucking systems. And there's not really we don't really know why. We don't know what happened, or at least for the context of this episode, we don't really know why or what happened. It's just the way it is. That the realm of Ultramar is very, very widely dispersed. And a lot of the planets end up kind of being isolated. They're in contact with each other, but they're isolated from there aren't 5 Imperial worlds within half a jump.
Ultramarines are just cherry pickers. That's what they are.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's get down to it.
Also, many of these human worlds are barbarous or uncivilized, and the ones that aren't are often in development or being explored or settled. So these are really, really wild frontier worlds. Or 100% feudal worlds, or night worlds, or barbarian worlds, or just kind of cut off. The other thing in the Eastern Fringe is the Tau Empire. It originated in this area. However, they may not be and are far from the only Xenos that come from this area of space. The other big one is the Necron Sotek dynasty, which is a rapid and majorly expanding threat to the entire Eastern Fringe, including our boys, the Tau. Another interesting thing about the Eastern Fringe is there is a lot of Exodite worlds in the Eastern Fringe.
Really?
And part of that is because the Eastern Fringe is pretty much as far away from the Eye of Terror as you can get.
Yeah, sounds about right.
We really got to jump into Necron lore, because I feel like Necrons are probably the one army I feel there's obviously a lot of armies I don't have a lot of knowledge of, but I feel like Necrons are probably the one army that I don't have very much knowledge of. It's not they're the ones that I'm struggling with. And it's not, the bar is not high, but
once you know the whole backstory with the Catan and the Necron tier, that part, and then it's basically fast forward to the Silent King and a guy that we're going to talk about here coming up in a minute. That's basically all of it.
We're going to talk about a Necron dynasty or
Yeah,
quasi
they are.
Necron dynasty today.
That's probably the only lore I do know is like the between the old ones, the Necron tier. Like all the lore I know is from the War in Heaven.
Yeah. So that's actually probably not the next, but yeah, the before we do the faction overview for the Necron, we will definitely touch on the War in Heaven, and talk about ancient fucking history and the Necron tier and the Satan, and then but that's definitely the Necron are definitely coming up. I think we're probably doing Tyranids next, but the Necron are definitely on the horizon. I know everybody really wants us to do Space Marines so we can start jumping into everybody's favorite chapter, but nah.
Well, because the problem is,
get us to year 3 and we'll do Space Marine. No, I'm kidding. We love you guys. We're getting
okay.
there.
So Space Marines is cool and all, and like there's always a special place in my heart for a Space Marine because they're fucking badass. But at the same time, we can't do one Space Marine chapter and then not do the fucking rest of them.
It's
going to be like 6 months.
Yeah.
Of Space Marines.
It's going to be like the year of Space Marine. That's essentially what's going to happen for the pod.
Well, we'll do.
Here's the deal.
It'll happen.
We'll do it when Space Marine 2, the game comes out. That's when we start.
Don't say that because Space Marine 2 will be announced. This is what happens every fucking time we say something like that on the podcast. The next fucking day, the day the podcast episode releases or the day after, G-Dub announces something. Like we had an entire episode where we talked about the 50% rule, and literally the next day, the day after the episode dropped, G-Dub was like, the 50% rule is gone. It's now 90% rule. And then we talked about how they would never bring back squats. I said at the beginning of an episode, GW will never bring back squats. And literally like a week after the episode dropped, they were like, Leagues of Votan are coming. And I was like, God damn it. Like,
all right, we're back. What did we miss?
Exactly. It was that fucking trailer. It came out like a week after.
Dude,
my
trailer,
dumbass said to the entire fucking world that G-Dub will never bring the squats back.
You know
However,
what, Ryan?
To balance out your fucking wrong predictions, my predictions were right. I was right that the Imperial Guard was going to be basically last, but it was going to get a pretty drastic reworking to the way the army functions. But it's not. Ryan. It can't change certain fundamental aspects, and I was fucking dead on with that.
This is what I need you to do. I need you to say, Marky will never get $1 million, and it'll never rain a bunch of.
I'm not saying that. What do you think? G-Dub's going to send you $1 million next week?
Somebody will.
G-Dub sends you $1 million next week. I'm just saying. I get like $1, okay? I get $1. That's all I'm saying.
Well, no, if GW sent it to him, it would be under the clause that he has to give it back with interest.
It's store credit.
It's store credit.
But you can only use 15% of it at a time, and you're like, damn it. Or you can only use it to pay for 15% of your order.
15%?
Oh, dude. Oh, that's so much worse.
Because then you're obligated to spend it, but
my God.
You're screwed.
So located in the Halo Star. Oh, okay. So to address the Space Marine thing, just like we're doing with the Necrons, we'll go back and we'll talk about the War in Heaven, and we've already talked about this. We're going to talk about the Unification Wars and a lot of 30k history, and then that'll be our diving point into the Mechanicum and the Space Marines. And those are kind of like the Mechanicum and the Astartes are very big pillars, and we kind of have to like get to them at the right time. And it kind of feels like we should probably talk about the Necron. Oddly enough, it kind of feels like we should talk about the Necrons first in a lot of ways.
I mean, they are the original race.
Yeah.
Timeline wise, they're first.
Yeah, they're the only old one race we haven't talked about yet. So anyway,
you're right, because we did Eldar and Orcs.
Yeah. So located in the Halo Stars to the galactic northeast of the Eastern Fringe are the Ghoul Stars, also called the Ghost Stars. This vast expanse of wilderness space is filled with a large number of dead worlds, most of which at one point or another were human inhabited worlds. It is theorized that some vast ancient threat wiped out all of the life that had settled these, though. So this is well outside the reach of the Astronomicon, and exploring and traveling through this region is extremely perilous and is often only done by the foolhardy or those with the experience to make such attempts worthwhile. So we already mentioned that rogue traders will venture into this area. Rogue traders are probably the most trained and the most experienced when it comes to dicking around with stuff like this in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they are the only people that do any exploring in the Imperium other than
exploratory
fleets. But even then, the exploratory fleets really only go places that they're told to go.
Right.
Like, they're not just out there exploring for exploring's sake. They're like, data records indicate archaeotech stored at this facility.
Yeah, exactly. They're going after something specific.
Yeah,
really
they're...
good.
You like my Mechanicus?
Yeah, that was really fucking good.
So this region is also home to creatures that are directly out of the human primal nightmares, like the Cythor Fiends and the Togaron Blood Reeks. So Cythor or Cythor Fiends. I'm going to say Cythor. I like it better, but it could be Cythor.
Cythor!
Are tall humanoid creatures with long, spindly limbs ending in long, taloned hands. So they've got like two really long, almost razor-like talons, and then they've got a thumb and two normal fingers. So like if your pinky and your... Not your ring. Yeah, if your pinky and your ring finger were like super long and blades, essentially.
And on top of your other... It's like... It almost looks like it's the two middle fingers like in position, and then move the pinky in and under those other two.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, they almost have the body of the new orcs from Age of Sigmar. What are they called?
Oh yeah, the
Are they reverse? Are they reversed legged?
Yeah, they're digigrade legged too.
No way.
Yeah.
Digigrade orcs?
Yeah, I forgot what they're called.
What?
Because the normal orcs are the orcs, and then you have the what the fuck are they called? Ryan, pull me out of this hole.
Aren't they the Ungor or the Urgor?
Oh yeah, I thought those were just like basically the replacement for black orcs.
God damn, is it Ungor? I don't feel like that's it.
No, Umgor Ironhide is the name of one of their...
They're like swamp something or other.
Oh, are they swamp orcs?
It's something like that.
That's kind of cool. Digigrade swamp orcs? I'll take
those,
it.
I don't think those are digigrade.
Oh, okay. I
don't
they
just have like the super badass squig shields and stuff. Like, but god damn, what the fuck are they called? It's on the tip of my tongue.
What army are they in?
Destruction.
Uruk War Clans?
I don't think is that it?
Yeah, Uruk.
Uruk.
ORRUK. Uruk. Or Cruel Boys. The
Cruel Boys.
Like,
thank you.
Yeah, that's probably the word you're looking for. But they're part of the Uruk War Clans.
Okay, so they are orcs. Okay, Cruel Boys though. Yeah, they're the one. They're essentially like Lord of the Rings orcs almost.
Yeah, that's why Uruk-hai was what I was thinking.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's why my brain was stuck on Urgor. But those are Ungors are actually Beasts of Chaos. So Cythor Fiends. Cythor Fiends. I still like Cythor better. Their heads are also elongated with vile parodies of basic human faces filled with needle teeth. So they've got two eyes, they've got a nose, or they've got a place a nose should have been, like if a skull's nose rotted off, essentially. And then they've got these kind of distended, overly opening mouths with needle teeth, and then they've got like a long venom style tongue in there. Their skin is kind of rocky, but it's not rocky. It's like leathery with like dermal plates, essentially. Almost
Leathery
like a natural armor. And their torsos are very long, and their arms are very long. They almost kind of knuckle. You'd almost say that they knuckle dragging. But their legs are super powerful, and they're digigrade because they move very, very quickly. So their technology is all crystalline, from their buildings and fortresses to their ships and even their weapon technology. In fact, their main weapon is a crystalline disc that flies through the air, shattering and reforming into slashing and cutting surfaces as it moves. So they're able to control these things, not through warp psychics. They don't work. These are not a warp race, but they don't purely exist in the 4 dimensions of humanity's perceived existence.
Perception.
Right.
Perceived perception.
And they're not really alive in the same sense that most other creatures in the material realm are alive, at least according to the Death Spectre's Space Marine chapter. And, as I mentioned earlier, they're not warp creatures. So they have physical bodies. So the easiest way to explain this is that they interact with the universe in a way that doesn't rely on Euclidean physics and dimensions. So they understand non-Euclidean physics and non-Euclidean dimensions. And the way it's that very like Lovecraftian kind of description, our human mind can't perceive it because it's a triangle, but it has 12 sides, and a triangle doesn't have 12 sides. And my eyeball is melting because my brain doesn't want to comprehend the non-existent geometry that obviously exists in this physical thing. It's
Gotcha.
playing around with that idea, essentially.
Yeah, they're very into crystal and horoscopes.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Perfect. Their structures are just too alien for humanity to really understand. Much like the Necrons, they kind of access these other pocket dimensions. So they're not going into the warp, but they are going into different extra-dimensional space. They also aren't really flesh and blood creatures. They exist in bodies, but they're able to exit these bodies at will. Much like the Satan, you can kind of look at them as being energy beings. However, these are energy beings that are tethered to physical forms or physical bodies, at least when it comes to existing in the physical plane, in the material plane, and when it comes to reproducing. So they can go into these they can leave their bodies and go into kind of like a webway, if you want to put it, or an extra dimensional pocket from the Necrons. They can go into these spaces and they can go through them like a doorway in their ship might not be a doorway. It might be what looks like a crack or a fissure in like, a mirror. Human Navy personnel are running down or not human Navy personnel. Space Marines are on their ship and they're boarding them and they're trying to purge them. And we'll get to purging in a minute. But they're trying to purge them, and then they come up to this like glass mirrored wall, and there's a crack in it, and they're like, why can't we see? Like, all of these things ran into this room. There's no other exit from this room. Where did they go? They all went through that little crack, and they're now in that other dimensional space. And we can't cross that dimensional space because our bodies rely on material physics and material rules to abide by. Their bodies don't. However, unless they're in our material plane, they can't reproduce. So the Death Specters and the Black Templars, who we'll get into in a second, kind of viewed these as being like above humanity in a way, but also more basic than humanity, because they have this technology that we can't understand, but they still need to fuck in our universe. And the Black Templars have a tendency to look down on whatever they can. Like that's their core belief, is everybody is below human.
Well, yeah.
They still need wieners to bone.
Yeah. What the fuck? What is all this good technology if you still need to bone? So the Cythors feed on the blood and meat of material creatures, moving out and hunting down humans and bringing them back to their lairs to feed upon. So they have this kind of like vampiric element too, but it's much more like they eat the entire body. In fact, I'm not sure how true this is, but the way that their weapons work might indicate or might suggest that they don't actually need the blood, or that the blood might be toxic to them. They just need the meat. But I think that that's people guessing. There's not a lot on the Cythors we're sharing with you all of the official Cythor lore, and then we're giving you tidbits of what people have kind of like suggested or guessed at. And one of the guesses is that because the crystalline weapons exist the way they do, and I can't remember who said this, but it's in one of the RPG books, was basically like the weapon bleeds you so they can eat your meat without like tainting their taste with blood. But at the same time, they're also presented in lore as kind of being these like vampires that like feed and eat everything. So I'm like, so did they drink the blood or did they not like the? What are you saying, G-Dub? So there you go. You have both theories. It's one of them. So the death specters.
You know what they remind what they look like, or like what they remind me of. Some people might not know, but the Man Bat from Batman.
I have no idea what that is, but
He's
I
like
can
the big
see,
brown.
I can see Man Bat from this.
Yeah,
It looks like Batboy. It looks like if you made Batboy like an adult and he was hideous and in a cave and he was murdering people in the town, this is what he would look like.
and eating their meat.
Eating their meat. But not them. Like he murders them and then just eats all the meat out of their refrigerator. He doesn't even really murder them. He just breaks in and eats all the meat out of the fridge and leaves. He even leaves money to pay for the damage he did. I'm sorry. So the Death Specters launched a crusade against the Cythor Fiends, but found when they reached their planets, the Cythor Fiends were missing. However, the Cythor Fiends returned later and retook all of the worlds once those forces were left behind. So they let the Death Specters come in, take the worlds from them, probably leave PDF and Imperial Guardsmen behind, and then the Death Specters will be like, well, fuck, we've been here for 10 years and nothing's happened. All right, boys, you watch. We're going back to our picket line. And they went back to wherever their base was, and then the Cythors came in and were like, oh, look, a buffet. How nice of the Space Marines to leave this lovely buffet for us behind. So the Death Specters, based on this, moved to an action of containment tactics rather than extermination. And this was like between M34 and M38. And the Death Specters essentially just kind of hang out in this area. That's what they do. That's where the Death Specters hang. In M41, Helbrecht led the Black Templars and the Death Specters on a crusade once again to the Cythorian homeworld, the gas giant of Gravecore, exterminating most of the race in the process. However, just like when the Death Specters in their earlier attempt to purge, they largely found the core Cythor world to be empty. Helbrecht around this time was called off his personal crusade because Armageddon was requesting help during the Third War of Armageddon. So Helbrecht led all the way in to Gravecore, and then he got a distress call from Armageddon and left with all of his forces. It's hinted that the Cythors have come back and largely re-inhabited all of these worlds again. So essentially, because they don't exist just in our material universe, the Imperium tries to purge them. They fuck off into their own dimension, and then the Imperium leaves, and they come back and they start eating and mating and making more again. We don't really know why. We don't really know what their technology is. We don't really know. They don't work with. All we know is they don't work with the warp, and they're able to go extra dimensional. The Cythor Fiends, and they fuck a lot, have also been reported on Blackstone fortresses. They are well documented in ancient Eldari texts, and they have been observed on the demon world of Sublime. There's another probably hazy actual lore story, but I'm going to mention it in brief, that the Cythors greatly fear the Dark Eldar. And when
do they practice Santeria?
on the world of Sublime.
Do they have a
Yes.
Do they have a crystal ball?
They do. They totally do. So the Cythors fear the Dark Eldar, and they fear the Dark Eldar because the Mandrakes hunt them down for sport. And I'm pretty sure the Mandrakes hunting them down for sport is part, like for sport, and like their becoming ceremony is part of the Mandrake lore, because the Mandrakes do hunt an extra dimensional being down and take their skins so they can exist in weird shadow. We'll get into that in depth when we talk about the Dark Eldar. But the Cythor Fiends specifically have baited the Dark Eldar into situations where the Space Marines can deal with the Dark Eldar problem for them, essentially. That's anecdotal. Fun. I don't know if that's actual lore. We'll get into the actual connection when we talk about Dark Eldar, but that's why I kind of brought it up as an aside. So the next one, the Togoran Bloodreeks, are described as fierce creatures that favor close combat. That's it. That's all you guys get. That's all the official lore.
Nice.
There it
There's
is.
a crumb.
There's
Let them eat cake.
G-Dub leaving something. So when they come out with Black Fortress Expansion 12, they'll be like, and here's a Blood Reek. You'll be like, oh shit, I totally did not picture a small chihuahua with 4 legs. four extra legs.
Right,
What the
but
fuck?
that's a Blood
That's
Reek.
a Drogon Blood Reek? To chihuahua with 8 legs? What? The tomb world of Drazak also inhabits the Ghoul Stars. Known in ancient legends as the Bone Kingdom of Drazak, it is now home to a large population of Necron Flayed Ones. So we're going to dip a toe into Necron lore for you, Marky, because we now need to explain what Flayed Ones are before we can get into the Bone Kingdom. So Flayed Ones are
Sounds good to me.
twisted and ghoulish Necrons infected with the Flayer virus. This virus manifests as a terrible hunger for flesh that cannot be satisfied and drives the infected Necron to madness. Flayed Ones are even loathed by Necrons themselves, and those infected with the virus are often banished if not destroyed. So Flayed Ones crave to be whole again. They crave to be flesh again. And because of that, the way that the virus manipulates their body, their minds, essentially, convinces them that the way to do that is to consume the flesh and drink the blood of others. However, Necrons can't eat or drink.
I was gonna say, what?
That's where the madness comes in.
They forget that they're not
Right.
alive.
It's
Don't they
kind
also
of
like drape flesh
yes
on themselves?
Yes.
drape skin over them. Yeah, so that they can appear
And
more.
it's kind of like that Barbosa thing where he's talking about how they hunger, the pirate, the undead pirates and Pirates of the Caribbean, they want to have sex, they want to eat, they want to drink, but food tastes,
They don't.
they can't feel. Food
Can't be
turns to
satiated.
ash. Yeah. It's essentially that concept. Like the Flayed Ones can totally, manifest a mouth and nom, 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 but they can't actually taste it. They can't actually consume it. As I mentioned, the Necrons are loath. The Necron species, the Necron faction, not species, the Necron faction itself loathes Flayed Ones. And when an infestation of Flayed Ones is discovered, they're either banished or destroyed. There's a couple of different reasons for this. The main one is that they don't follow the main orders of chain of command. So the ruler of a Necron dynasty can't actually give Flayed One orders. They don't listen. They do whatever the fuck they want. What they want is to run into the enemy, rip all its flesh off, and drape themselves in it. It's also feared that just being around them is enough to pass on the virus to other Necrons. So the Necrons have a couple of different viruses. Another one is called the Destroyer virus, and the Destroyer virus is similar. The Destroyer virus drives the Necron to destroy all life, period, to a molecular level. And Destroyers also can give their virus just by proximity. It's like a computer virus. It's a computer virus. If you network with it, you might get it. And since a lot of the Necron dynasties are essentially loosely networked, there's a chance that if a Flayed One exists inside your network for too long, other Flayed Ones might rise up.
And that's why you got to wrap it before you jack in.
That's right. So Flayed Ones, one of the things that the virus gives to Flayed Ones is the ability to use pocket dimensions. This is a technology that the Necrons have, and many cryptechs actually believe that all Flayed Ones inhabit their own specific pocket dimension. They have their own reality that they use only. So they're the only ones that can access it, and they've got this like charnel kingdom, so to speak, of their own to play in. Because of this, Flayed Ones will appear from these pocket dimensions in front of Necron advances in times of war, charging into close combat in an effort to flay whatever is before them. When they do appear on the field of battle, it is by chance, not by invitation. So the Necron dynasties never reach out and ask the Flayed Ones to show up. The Flayed Ones just show up. They also have
almost like a weird STD Legion of the Damned.
a little bit. It's also a little bit like orc stuff. The Flayed Ones kind of just sense when big battles are happening with the Necron and appear.
Huh.
So while they will fight alongside the rest of the Necron forces, they often vanish back into their pocket dimensions before the battle is finished, as they understand that the other Necrons will seek to destroy them rather than letting them leave the field. They're also really just there to shed as much blood as possible and gather as many grisly trophies as they can. Flayed One's necrodermis morphs to serve the desire of the virus, their fingers forming into wickedly long, knife-like claws called flensing claws, and their legs growing additional digigrade joints. This allows them to move a lot faster, jump pretty damn far. However, in a nasty final twist, the final transformation they need, the ability to consume the flesh that they crave, never comes. And this is actually one of the things that they say, the Flayer virus is a Satan curse. Flayed Ones collect trophies from the dead, adorning themselves in the skin, bones, and other tissues of those that they have killed. They wear the skins of their victims, wrapping them around their necrodermis even as they advance and attack. So they'll rip all the skin off a guardsman and then take the time on the field of battle to drape it on themselves before attacking the next guy. However, they can also skin an entire body in a couple of seconds. So the other guardsmen are probably like, what the fuck?
That whole thing happens in a hole of like 10 seconds.
Would you fuck me? I'd fuck me. Meanwhile, Jeff is like, holy fuck.
It'd be like the best fucking meme ever. Just a flayed one holding a little dog looking down into a hole. It puts the lotion on its skin.
Or it gets the hose again.
Get to it, guys. I'm sure somebody in our
That's right. Somebody
post it on the Discord.
That's right. Somebody on the Discord, make that happen. If you just heard,
take that picture right there.
If this is your first podcast episode that you're listening to ever of our podcast, join our Discord just to make the Buffalo Bill necrodermis flayed one, okay?
Oh yeah.
So these creatures, to get back to the Bone Kingdom of Drazak, these creatures stalk the desolate streets of Drazak, fighting over the scraps of rotting meat, skin, and bones left over from their great last hunt. Only the Necron overlord Valgul, the Fallen Lord, seems above the madness that has consumed his entire kingdom. So there is actually a Necron who sits at the head of a dynasty that is all flayed ones. He sits on a throne of splintered bone and tanned skins, ruling his charnel kingdom, his one good eye ever fixed and focused on maintaining some semblance of order. It is not known if Valgul remains here out of a sense of duty to his fallen dynasty, or if some subtler version of the madness afflicts him as well. His kingdom is not, however, ruled by reason, but by the spoils of conquest, and every few solar months, when the last bits of meat and gore have almost been fully rendered to non-existence or have rotted away completely, Valgul announces a new time of bounty, leading fleets of Drazak to raid nearby worlds, his forces rounding up as many slaves as those they killed during these raids, bringing them back and releasing the bounty of flesh to be toyed with, skinned, and killed as they run among the streets of Drazak. So they go out, they fight somebody, they capture a fuck ton of slaves, they go back to their world, which is one giant fucking rotting city, they release all of these people into it, and then they hunt them for sport.
And they hunt them.
That's one nightmare. Jesus,
and then when they run out, they're like, fuck boys, let's go do it again.
So
round
have you guys ever seen the movie The Pest?
Yes.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yes.
Yeah.
With John Leguizamo.
Right? Exactly what I was thinking. Yeah. With John Leguizamo.
That's based on a book called The Greatest Game. Or no, The Most Dangerous Game.
Most dangerous
I've heard of the book, but the movie The Pest.
And then somebody remade it just recently, except that it's like super politically slanted.
No, The Pest was definitely not.
There's a like ridiculous, like, it's 100% this concept, but it's not. I want to say it's almost Disneyfied that's out now, where like people are being hunted, but they're being hunted with like Nerf guns. It's very
goody.
silly.
What?
But the concept of this comes up every couple of years. There was the movie where they dropped all the convicts. Yeah, Predators. There was the movie where they dropped all the convicts on an island. It was like right after reality television had become big, and like everybody watched.
Hunger Games.
Yeah, Hunger Games. Yeah,
Gamer.
Exactly. Gamer. Also with John Leguizamo.
Gamer was so good. That is, yeah.
So
very, very, very fun concept to play with.
The Bone Kingdom of Drazak would be a gnarly converted army. So I made a destroyer cult for my Necron army, and destroyer cult was an old army of renown. I think it's back. I think it went away and now it's back. I mean, you can still do a destroyer cult, but there wasn't an army of renown for a while. But it would be cool to see a flayed one army of renown. And
I would totally.
And it'd be just like a destroyer cult. Like you're gonna have lots of flayed ones, but you're gonna have Necron warriors too. They're also infected with the Flayer virus. They're just not.
It just hasn't progressed as far.
Yeah, I would make what is it? The Fallen Lord Volgul. I would. How do you say it? Valgul.
He makes me think of Vecna from D&D because he has one eye.
I'd make him Buffalo Bill. He's just behind in the back, just
fucking awesome. Oh my god! And his little helper Ed Gein.
Yeah, and then I get kicked out of every tournament.
But yeah, I mean
you can't play him here.
I guess both things that we've gone deep into, the Cythor Fiends and the Bone Kingdom, are both extra horror-y. 100% horror-y. There's no other way to look at it. Not horror-y, Mark. Horror-y.
Why you got to ruin my fun, Ryan? You knew exactly what I was thinking. I saw it in your face. You had to ruin it. You couldn't just let me live with that thought. I wasn't even going to bring it up. And you had to go and shoot it out of the sky.
So during the...
yes, hoary, yes.
So during the later years of the 34th millennium, the Nova Marines Space Marine chapter fought a mysterious threat that arose in the Ghoul Stars, referred to only as the Pale Wasting. This may have been part of the reason why many of the human-inhabited worlds of the region became dead worlds. Most evidence of the conflict, however, has been removed from Imperial records, even those in access and controlled by the Inquisition. The Inquisition doesn't even know what happened. The only evidence of the Nova Marines being involved is an ancient stelia in the Imperial Palace itself, and that records mostly this:
by their mortal sacrifice and unmatched valor unmade, and which cannot die, so preserve the most holy realm of mankind.
Which pretty much has no fucking information in it. The inscription,
the holiest of holy.
The inscription goes on to name 11 other chapters that were all completely lost during this conflict. In fact, even the Nova Marines' own internal chronicles are curiously empty of any details surrounding this conflict. Which is just one of those like, what? Like, there was an entire war that was so horrible in the Ghoul Stars that you completely destroyed all record of it. Great.
Yeah, it just means they lost.
It's true. I also like that the inscription, by their mortal sacrifice and unmatched valor unmade, that which cannot die, so preserve the most holy realm of mankind. What does that mean? That's a lot of words strung together that don't mean fuck all.
It means that the immortal soldiers were slain in defense of the most holy empire eternal.
Y'all lost. What the fuck? It's cool Tara's still here.
Yeah, exactly. You lost.
Basically.
Thank you for your service. We're still alive, bitch. You couldn't kill me.
Yeah.
So the Covenant of the Eclal. In 390 M38, the Marines Errant Space Marine chapter entered into the Covenant of Ekal with the legendary Sayahid Ekal of the great rogue trader house of Ekal. The nature and details of this pact remain a secret and will most likely always remain one, as neither side is willing to speak on the matter. What is covered by the Imperium Chronicle is that the entire weight of the chapter was added to the rogue trader's own substantially large army in a perilous voyage of war and exploration deep into the Ghoul Stars that lasted more than 40 Terran years, coming to an end in 433.m38. So this Space Marine chapter joined with a rogue trader house, and then they crusaded into the Ghoul Stars. And again, that's it. That's what we get. That's what we know about that entire event.
And nobody heard from them again.
And they were forced to eat Robin's minstrels. At the extreme
The giblets.
the giblets. At the extreme edge of the Iquathian Deeps in the northern area of Ultima Segmentum, near the borders of the Ghoul Stars, rests the sentinel world of Orsak. In late M41, a splinter tendril of the eastern hive fleets of the Tyrannid appeared above the world and descended upon it. These Tyrannids were disoriented and had been twisted by their passage through the Ghoul Stars. So they showed up and they were like not acting like normal Tyrannids, and they didn't look like normal Tyrannids. They were more ravenous, almost like beasts, than any other Tyrannid that had ever been encountered before or since. Almost as if they were fighting on their last instincts before death. So like they were cornered animals. In a brief conflict that lasted only solar days but claimed the lives of hundreds of thousands, the defenders of Orsak were able to push back the Tyrannids and hold their world. These defenders were backed up by the Red Talon Space Marine chapter and the Titan Maniple of Legio Magna. This combined force eventually contained and fully purged the twisted and mutated Xenos threat. However, evidence suggests the Biofleet actually escaped back into the outer systems and may have even retreated into the Ghoul Stars themselves. So whatever the fuck was in the Ghoul Stars that this Tyrannid fleet went through, fucked the Tyrannid fleet up. The Tyrannid fleet came out the other side like a wounded animal, but also
Please
twisted.
don't do that again.
Don't do one again.
I was going to say...
come out of the Ghoul Stars?
The Tyrannid Hive Fleet was like, yeah, no, not again.
I was going to say, it's not very... You
Never
don't hear
again.
very many stories of the Tyranids getting pushed back. It's usually just like a slaughter.
Right.
Not them like retreating or pulling back or defeated to the point where...
And even if they do retreat, they hardly ever go back. They basically go, this world is too much of a pain. We'll come back to it later. And they move to
Yeah, they go around.
Right.
Right?
There's definitely... this is another one of those little kernels, just like the Bone Kingdom, where you're kind of like, well, what the fuck happened to these guys? And like, what would a hive fleet based on this concept look like? How are they fucked up? How do they operate differently? Which Tyrannid traits do you take on tabletop to reflect this like twisted, like, and it's not, and at the same time, it's not warp. Whatever happened to them wasn't the warp. It was just something else weird. Did they run into some other Xenos faction that just fucking tore them a new one? And like all that was left, these were the dregs that were left that were coming out and trying to survive?
That would make sense, right? Because a lot of the fear of Tyranids is the shadow and the warp, which a lot of races in, the Milky Way galaxy, that's what they depend on, right? That's how,
Right.
Vox works. That's how a lot of these other ways to communicate work, where you just talked about a species that enters alternate dimensions not based in the warp. It wouldn't affect them.
Right. Yeah, it would just completely and like, yeah. It's an interesting story because you can look at, and that's what's cool about places like the Ghoul Stars. There's enough there to set up these like basis for creepy shorts. And whether or not that's a horror story that you want to tell, or whether or not that's a narrative campaign you want to run, or whether or not that's an army idea that you want to take and run with. Marky, it sounded like you were super excited about doing a Flayed One army.
Yeah, honestly, that was just talking about it, I was like, fuck, that sounds so cool. And I've always been interested in Flayed Ones. I had no idea what they were, or like how they operate.
I always thought this Bone Kingdom one would be a fun one to do.
Yeah, 100%. I had no idea that they were like killed off because they were thought of like lepers almost.
So one of the like 40k conspiracy theories that I've heard is that the Flayed Ones, so the Flayer virus touches all Necron dynasties. They don't come from this one dynasty. It can happen. Anybody can become a Flayer. And the Necrons don't really know why it happens. Like they don't, being around flayed ones definitely causes it, but you'll also have a dynasty that has no flayed ones in it, and then it'll all of a sudden generate flayed ones. It just happens. It's just like destroyers. It just happens. And there's a 40k conspiracy theory. There's a 40k like fan lore conspiracy theory, however you want to look at it, that all flayed ones kind of slowly migrate to the Bone Kingdom, and that's why it's as big. That's why it's cool. A dynasty.
You know what it reminds me of? I want to say it was like Terminator Salvation. Have you seen that one? The one where it almost goes to like the point of where it's after the apocalypse, and they have like the first. Arnold was a T100,
T800.
T800. So they have, I think, like the T600 or T700, where it's like it's not fully human yet. Like it's almost like it's almost one? There. Like no, it's like Uncanny Valley, where it's like it's you can tell it's a Terminator, but but it looks human. I don't know if you remember it, but like it's basically like it shows it like walking down like a valley or like
it's a ruins street.
Essentially.
Yeah,
like a ruined street, and like it's walking down
weirdly hanging off of it.
Exactly. Yeah, that's kind of what I feel like when I think about flayed ones, and it's just a cool concept. Like it's just the idea of it's cool. I really like it. I think it was like a T600 or T700 a few models before Arnold's T800 series.
There's a whole like series of flayed one art where like they look like they're wearing like Leatherface, like stitched together masks, and it's totally that vibe. It's that edge of like uncanny. What you're talking about, Uncanny Valley stuff. It's that flayed ones would be right up Tom's alley, because you've got that virus concept. You've got all of that stuff.
I wonder, just out of curiosity, how, like, if you could run that. Like, I'm assuming they're like an elite choice, right? I've never played Necrons, and I don't know much about them, but I'm assuming it'd be like an elite.
They used to be elite. They might be fast attack now. I don't run flayed ones, so I feel like I should know the tactic answer to you, but I
think they're still elites. I think the fast attacks are the wraiths and
Tomb Blades. I think.
Is there other types besides? I mean, you guys might not know this. I don't know, but for flayed ones, they usually have like those little guys, right? They're like little tiny ones, but do they have like larger Necron? Units the
flayed ones are Necron warrior sized. They just have they're kind of like hunched over, and they've got flensing talons. The other model that has flensing talons right off the bat is the Ophidian destroyers, which are like the really big the like long cobra like ones that I run that have the really long claws on the front. Those are Ophidian destroyers. Scorpec lords have flensing claws as well. They've got one big blade, a flensing claw, and usually like a pistol or something, like a plasma arc gun.
If I was gonna do it, I'd have to. It'd be essentially a Necron melee army, right?
You'd probably run Scorpec destroyers. Like the destroyers the 3-legged destroyers that use blades. You'd probably run Ophidian destroyers, which are the like deep strike fast attack ones. You'd definitely run a bunch of you'd core out on flayed ones. It'd be like running a Gene Stealer based Tyranid army. You'd core out on flayed ones, but then you would take Necron warriors because and you just theme the entire army. That your Necron warriors are draped in fleshy bits too.
Yep.
Either green stuff or tissue paper, because there's ways to make like tissue paper look like fucking rotting flesh. It'd be
interesting.
Army.
I'd have to think about like how I want it to look though. Like if I want it to be like more zombie-esque, if I want it to be like the T700 or T600, Terminator model, or if like what it's something I'd want to ponder on a little bit. Like, see, that's sick, where you like hang skeletons.
That is
off.
sufficiently creepy.
Yeah, hang skeletons off of them, bunch of dead skin. Like, what would the color scheme be? It's I'm gonna think about this. I don't need another 40k army, but god damn it if I can't think about it.
Right. Well, the other thing that you could do too is that you could mix in, honestly, like whatever you wanted to do. What if you wanted to take any of these concepts from what we just talked about? There's a lot of things that you could do here. I could see taking a vampire counts army. They're now Soul Blight Grave Lords, I think. You could look at some of the Soul Blight graveyard stuff, Grave Lord stuff. You could do a Ghoul Stars army that's like, you could use Imperial Guard as your base. You can say that or whatever you wanted to. You could do Dark Eldar. You could pick an army as your base, and then you could get like Soul Blight graveyards and mix Grave Lords, and then you could mix in Xenos weapons or even Imperial weapons, and then you could just say, well, these are the Toragron Bloodreeks, or these are something else from the Ghoul Stars, or you could use the skeletons from that as the basis for your Bone Kingdom.
I feel like I would do
guys.
like instead of like a silver or like a metallic, I feel like I would use blood for the blood god.
Oh, just paint.
So it's almost like they're red. just straight up like blood skeletons.
Yeah.
I feel like that would be really cool.
It'd be interesting to mix. It's definitely like, if you got really into doing a Flayed One army, like designing out a Flayed One army, I see like 3 ways to do it. You could do the very, very, not very basic, but the original idea of like Necrons, like the old school Necrons. Because when the Necrons first came out, this is what they were. They were mindless, soulless, and some of them like to drape their bodies in skin, and that was all. So you could do that scheme where it's just, you dress them up in gross, tattered remains of human organs and viscera. Or you could do what you're saying, where you go, kind of all out, and their armor has been slowly, like, their necrodermis is slowly like seeped in all of the blood, and it's changed their colors. Or you could even go with like what the lore is suggesting. The lore is suggesting that the longer they have the virus, the more their necrodermis changes. So you could literally make like mix zombie and skeleton kits with Necron kits.
Yeah.
Like these are really infected. Like these are my super, super ancient ones who are like, their bodies look like fucking rotting corpses because that's how long the necrodermis has been just soaking all this shit in.
It's so cool. Yeah, such a cool idea.
They're creepy as fuck. I love flayed ones. I don't think I'd ever run them from a game perspective because I just like destroyer cults more, and I obviously made a 4,000 point destroyer cult army, but Blade ones from a lore perspective they're a good heebie-jeebie. They give you the little heebies in your jeebies. You're like, yeah, just creepy, man.
Yeah, I don't know. God damn, dude. I hate having these conversations because it makes me want to start another army. Yeah, it makes me want to start an army. I'm just like, fuck. Broke bitch.
I know, right? Every now and then
you can't do that.
I get the urge to go buy a fucking
kit
Steelers, so I can start Clan Cletus.
Clan Cletus.
Yeah, a destroyer cult, or not a destroyer cult, a flayed one cult army would be fucking sick, dude.
Yeah,
it really would. Really would.
I mean, I guess that's where Kill Team should shine, right?
Yeah, that's true. Make all your little kill teams. Well, guys, that'll about wrap it up for the Ghoul Stars. Let us know what we left out. Is there something that you know a little bit more about? Hey, maybe you know what the Bloodreeks are all about. Maybe you've got that. Maybe you read the book that mentions them more than one line. We'd love to know. And you can get a hold of us at either underthehiveofmadness@gmail.com or jimdarkgaming@gmail.com. Another way to get involved with us is to become a member of our growing Discord community. We love to share in your homebrew lore. We love to answer all of your questions about lore and much, much more. We feature community lore in our Tales of the Hive episodes. So if you send us that lore, we will read over it and then we will share it. We dive into spooky dooky side of things with our Loris Obscurus episodes, so share your real world ghost stories with us as well. You can also find us online with our website or follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We have links to everything in our show notes to make it super easy for you guys to follow. Help the podcast grow by liking and reviewing us wherever you get your podcast fix. Our home base is Spotify, but we are also on Apple, Google, Stitcher, and many, many more. If there's one that I didn't mention or one that you've noticed we're not on that's your preferred network, please message us at one of our email addresses and we'll get on fixing that as soon as possible. We have a milestone set up currently through Patreon to get to 30 members. You can help us with that at www.patreon.com/underthehiveofmadness. If we can get to 30 members, we are going to bring on an editor a little bit more full-time rather than just every once in a while. All Patreon members get access to a video version of our podcast episodes, which include some bonus content. Tonight's there was almost an entire other episode, so definitely a good time to jump in if you want that extra content, as well as access to our painting contest. We run a painting contest quarterly. We give away a Red Squig trophy. You get access to all of that at our lowest tier, our $3 tier. At our $6 tier, you can help answer some polls and also send us some questions, which help us kind of direct the future of the podcast. And at our $9 tier, we've got some art assets that we release for you guys, so you get a glimpse at what we've got going on. Those are usually high resolution art assets, so you can take them to your favorite printer if you wanted to get something branded with any of our logos or any of our team releases. And we are also working on a couple of different world building supplements is probably the best way to look at them, and all of that information is available at our $9 tier. If any of that stuff interests you, head on over to Patreon and check us out. Again, that's patreon.com/underthehiveofmadness. Well, I'm glad that our Vox signal is able to bounce up all these canyons and caverns that you happen to find us in all the time, Kev. I would say that the signal down here can be damn finer and cleaner than it is up in the Underhive at times, gents. Not to mention,
You got all this shiny stuff.
not to mention all this shiny stuff. That is true. You got what, 2 or 3 cases over there, Marky?
Yeah, I ain't keen on sharing either. With Beast not here, not to carry it. Now I gotta drag this shit around myself.
But when we get back, that's 2
That's
or 3 cases more than Beast will get.
You guys never touch this plasma stuff. It's like you're scared of it. I ain't never blown my face off.
Yet.
You know, three-fingered Lucius over there begs to differ.
I blew his fingers off. It's a statue. It don't matter. I'm damn glad that you brought Servitor Mikey over there. We'll just load it all up. Unless somebody wants to call Beast down specifically.
Nah, fuck him.
Bring him back, his shit's heavy.
Should have showed up for the raid.
Servitors only speak when spoken to.
Goddamn slave driver over here.
All this Archaeotech is going to help boost the signal, smashing right through all those Magistratum Thought Police quarantines. Nothing can stop the truth of rebellion. We are 665.66 UHMR Chemrat Radio. Keep those Vox dials locked. We'll be back. Same ratty-ass attitude, same ratty-ass time. When a 4-armed emperor breaks in your door, don't run down to the basement. They're just gonna lock you in. Unless, of course, you got a couple chainsaws down there, or like a whole room of chainsaws. Then just hide behind the chainsaws, turn them all on, and maybe the 4-armed emperor will follow you, right? I mean, it could happen.
As long as you're not the supporting girl character. If you're the main girl character, you're primo.
The virgin, yes.
That's good.